Hello everyone, Squintina here, and we will be going over my Reaper setup for Endwalker. This job was a gigantic pain in my butt because it has too many actions on the global cooldown, so I had to make some exceptions to the rule. Thankfully, this should not be an issue as I made sure they were logical placements either way. Anyway, we'll start with the left side of the primary with our D-pad having Soulsow. Soulsow? Soulsow? I don't know. This is sort of a stance while also being potentially an attack if things are timed correctly. I considered putting it on the double cross hotbar since it's basically a stance, but after placing everything, I determined this was the best location in case you do want to use its attack. For our basic combo, we'll have the right side of the primary. We also have Gibbet, because for our melee, we want the flank action on the right and the rear action on the left, just because that's what I do with Samurai, so it needs to be the same for all melee. That's why Gallows is on the same spot on the left. The last few remaining action buttons are used for our remaining single target only GCDs, Harpe, Shadow of Death, and Soul Slice. I'm going to talk about Hell's Egress and Harpe later. On the right side of the D-pad, we have our stun, which is in the same location as the other melee jobs, and we have Stalk and Communio. Communio is a GCD, so part of me wanted it to be on an action button. But I didn't have space for all the GCDs, and Communio is a spell, which means you can't move while casting. If a choice has to be made, it is better for a casted GCD to be on the D-pad than an instant GCD, because it will affect your movement less as once you start a cast, you cannot start moving until either it ends or your slide cast becomes available. Shadow of Death is also on the D-pad, so let's explain why it's repeated. To do that, we have our expanded, which is left and right together. We have our AoE combo there. Soul Scythe is in the same location as Soul Slice, Guillotine is in the same location as the other Soul Reaver actions, and on the D-pad we have Grimswath where Bloodstock would be, and Communio is in the same location it already is. Whirl of Death is on the bottom of the D-pad. I would have loved for it to be on an action button, but it was full. This is the reason why on the primary I have its single target equivalent Shadow of Death repeated. The one on the action button is the most ideal, but if you do a lot of dungeons, your muscle memory from doing AoE might just be too strong. So having it on the D-pad, it's just helpful. Next up, we'll go into the double cross hotbar, which you access by double tapping. We have some set patterns here, our party damage buff. Our resource providing action will be Plentiful Harvest to give us 2 stacks of Soul Reaver, and our self-damage buff locations will be Gluttony and Enshroud, since they give us access to more powerful attacks. Arm's Length and Feint are in the same locations as the other jobs, and our jump forward is Hell's Ingress. At this point, I want to talk about Hell's Ingress, Hell's Egress, and Harpe. The jump forward and jump back do have standard locations. This is where I normally have it for other jobs like Dragoon, Bard, whatever. However, Harpe, being a long-range action, would be considered a mobility action, and normally I would have that on the square button, on the primary, or the expanded. But I simply had more important actions to place there. I did consider putting it on the square button on the double cross hotbar where Gluttony is, but I chose not to do that to create a synergy between Ingress and Egress. If you will notice, Ingress is up on the action button, also known as triangle, and Harpe next to it is up on the D-pad. Meanwhile, Egress is the opposite. It is up on the D-pad, and I have Harpe up on the action button. Once again, most people would call that triangle. Both Ingress and Egress can turn Harpe into an instant attack. By having this pattern that is effectively the same but switched, it should make using Harpe more instinctive in those cases where you do end up in need of it. Last up, we have the left side of the double cross hotbar with our supporting actions. True North, Second Wind, and Bloodbath are our rule actions and the same locations as the other jobs. Arcane Crest is a self-mitigation, but also a party regen. I did consider putting it in the other spot I normally reserve for party mitigations, which is where Harpe is. But I wanted to keep that Harpe pattern, and Arcane Crest turns into a party regen, not a party shield, so it's not truly a mitigation anyway. We also have our limit break and our consumables. The super potion is a placeholder for where I normally would put a tincture. Sprint is on a macro on the right click-in button. I have it dragged to a regular hotbar for visibility, which you can do either via mouse or by using the virtual mouse or touchpad. Okay, the explanation is done. Here is how to set this up. Character configuration, hotbar settings, cross, then custom, settings for the expanded I use set 2, settings for the double tap I use set 3, system configuration, gamepad settings, button configuration, macro number 99. So we go into our user macros, individual, last one is 99 for the sprint macro. And just to show the setup again, primary on the right, primary on the left, double cross hotbar on the right, double cross hotbar on the left, expanded. If you are using the same settings that I am, you can utilize the macros in the description to set this up automatically. I also like for my gauge to be in the center. Anyway, that is my setup. As always, feel free to change anything as needed. I am not you, and it's okay to just use this as inspiration. Before I sign off, do hit that like button, and I do enjoy reading your comments, so let me know your thoughts. I will see you all for the next one. Bye bye.